Um, Now let us bring the whole picture of Kapha in the fifth house together, because this final layer helps you understand the deeper pattern underneath all the earlier observations. Up to now, we have looked at how Kapha in the fifth house can slow digestion, thicken emotion, stabilize memory, and create heaviness in creativity and romance. But in this last piece, I want you to focus on the hormonal and pancreatic dimension. And because this is where the principle of Kapha becomes especially obvious. And the principle is very simple. Kapha conserves more than it transforms. That is the key. Now you need to understand why that matters in the fifth house. This house governs a field of life that is meant to process, convert, generate, and express. It handles digestion, metabolism, memory, hormonal intelligence, creativity, emotional investment, and the power to bring something forth, whether that is a thought, a child, an idea, a feeling, or a form of love. So if kapha becomes excessive here, the system does not stop functioning altogether. Rather, it begins to hold, store, retain, and slow down the rate of change. That is why the slide says slow metabolism, tendency toward diabetes patterns, hormonal sluggishness, water retention, low reproductive fire. All of these point to one central truth. The system is not transforming efficiently anymore. I have seen in many charts that when kapha strongly burdens the fifth house, the body begins to act as though it is always preserving reserves. It becomes economical, conservative, and slow to mobilize. The metabolism does not ignite easily. Hormones do not move with dynamism. The pancreas may not respond with sharp precision. Fluids may accumulate. Reproductive vitality may become quieter, slower, or less expressive. And this is where students must become very observant, because kapha does not usually create dramatic early signals the way pitta does, and it does not create chaotic variability the way vata does. Kapha creates a pattern that settles in gradually. The person may simply say, I feel slow. My body holds on to things, but I gain easily. I retain water. My system is sluggish. I don't feel much fire. That language is very revealing. Now, when the slide mentions a tendency toward diabetes patterns, you need to understand that astrologically as part of a broader kapha pancreatic logic. The body stores, resists, and slows its processing response. This is not just about sweetness in diet or disease labels. It is about the larger symbolic principle that nourishment is no longer being transformed cleanly. It lingers, it accumulates, it thickens. So in interpretation, what you are really seeing is not just a metabolic issue. You are seeing retention replacing transformation. That is the heart of kapha aggravation here. The same goes for hormonal sluggishness. The endocrine field becomes less agile, timing may feel delayed, cycles may feel dampened. The native may not feel internally responsive or energized. There is not enough movement, not enough spark, not enough metabolic intelligence pushing things forward. Instead, the body tends to conserve. And that line, low reproductive fire, is especially important, because the fifth house is a house of generative energy. It wants to create, to project, to manifest. But when kapha dominates too much, the creative reproductive field becomes heavy. It may still have depth, but it loses heat. It may still have potential, but it lacks momentum. So the person may feel low drive, reduced inner ignition, decreased responsiveness, or a sense that everything takes longer to activate. That is very much in line with kapha's nature. Now let us come to the sentence that, for me, summarizes this whole slide beautifully. The system conserves rather than transforms. This is such a profound line, because it is not only about hormones or metabolism, it is about the whole fifth house experience. Think about it. In digestion, kapha conserves. In metabolism, kapha conserves. In memory, kapha conserves. In emotion, kapha conserves. In attachment, kapha conserves. It does not let things move on easily. That is why the final overall pattern in the slide is so accurate. Sluggish digestion plus heavy metabolism plus strong but slow memory plus emotional attachment patterns. This is one complete picture. The body digests slowly. Metabolism moves heavily. Mind remembers deeply but slowly. The emotions hold strongly but release poorly. And then comes the final line. Transformation becomes accumulation. You need to sit with that line for a moment because it is the real conclusion of Kapha in the fifth house. The fifth house is supposed to transform raw input into intelligent output, food into nourishment, experience into memory, feeling into creativity, love into expression, potential into manifestation. But when Kapha overwhelms this house, that transforming process loses momentum. Instead of moving forward, things begin to gather. They thicken, they settle, they become stored rather than expressed. And this is exactly where the theme of attachment reaches its deepest meaning. Because attachment is also a form of accumulation. I have seen in many charts that Kapha in the fifth house does not simply make a person loving. It makes them retentive in love. They hold memories, they hold feelings, they hold past bonds, they hold familiar joys, they hold old disappointments. They hold children, lovers, students, and creative identities very close to the heart. Sometimes this gives beautiful devotion, loyalty, and emotional endurance. But when excessive, it becomes difficulty in releasing, difficulty in moving on, difficulty in letting love breathe. Why, as a final teaching, I would put it like this. Kapha in the fifth house teaches us that whatever the body does physically, the heart often does emotionally. If the body retains fluid, the heart retains feeling. If the metabolism slows, emotional processing slows. Nourishment accumulates, memories accumulate. If the system conserves rather than transforms, then love also begins to conserve rather than flow. And that is where attachment becomes the final signature. Not just romance, not just dependency, but a deeper pattern of holding on to comfort, holding on to known bonds, holding on to emotional security, holding on to the familiar version of love, creativity, and selfhood. So the final conclusion I want you to take from this whole Kapha sequence is this. When Kapha increases in the fifth house, life does not become chaotic or inflamed. It becomes heavy, slow, conserving, and deeply attached. Digestion slows, metabolism thickens, memory slow. Creativity becomes patient but resistant. And emotionally, the person may love deeply, yet cling where they should release. So in the end, the real challenge of Kapha in the fifth house is not lack of feeling. It is too much retention of feeling. And once you understand that, the whole pattern becomes very clear. Transformation becomes accumulation and affection becomes attachment.